The Constitutional Court has reserved judgment in the matter between former President Jacob Zuma and the State Capture Commission. The court heard that the Commission's application to have Zuma jailed for 2 years for failing to abide by the order of the Apex Court to appear before the Commission. Lawyers representing the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture have told the Constitutional Court that a custodial sentence would be an appropriate punishment for Zuma. Advocate Tembeka Toby says Zuma is not going to go to jail for not appearing before the Commission, but for defying and discrediting the Constitutional Court, as well as attacking judges without facts. Well, for more on this story, we're going to cross over to my colleague Samkele Maseko, who's in studio with me. Thank you very much, Samkele, for joining us. Just give us a summation of what came out of the Constitutional Court today.
Essentially, what came out of the Constitutional Court virtual sitting today was that the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, in that urgent application, did say that they want the former President Jacob Zuma to be incarcerated for a period of 2 years for one, not obeying the Constitutional Court ruling and judgment that was handed down in February, on the 15th of February, that he must appear before the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, that he had no right to remain silent, that if he wanted to invoke the rule that he would not answer questions that may incriminate himself, he needs to provide substantive legal arguments. On that particular basis, the former president, on the day that he was meant to appear before the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, through his lawyers, Eric Mabuza attorneys, issued out a letter that the former president would not be going to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Advocate Tembeka Toby, representing the State Capture Commission of Inquiry Senior Counsel, going further to saying that the former president is not critiquing the chief justices in the country and also Judge Mlambo in the North Gauteng High Court. The former president has gone on a political campaign without any substance, without any facts, with frivolous allegations that judges have given up their green robes, that judges have been getting monies from CR17 or from President Cyril Ramaphosa, saying these are all substantiated, and that the former president didn't even have the courtesy to file responding affidavits to the Constitutional Court and be there to defend himself against this particular jail term that the State Capture Commission of Inquiry wants to be handed down against the former president. The issue of the judgment was reserved and it will be handed down at a later stage. But what is pretty clear is that the relations between the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, and former President Jacob Zuma are at an all-time low. One can even say they've deteriorated, and that the State Capture Commission, through its senior counsel, Advocate Tembeka Toby, going further to say that they've given up on all of any hope that the former president will go back and ever go back to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry to give any evidence. Thus, they just want him to be punished now because they've simply given up on trying to get him to go to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, as you saw those visuals there of the former president turning his back and walking out of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, where he never returned again.
Now, of course, you know, they've put forward their arguments, and indeed the Constitutional Court may go ahead and decide to, you know, go ahead with their recommendation of a sentence of some sort. Now, if that were to happen, what would the political ramifications be?
The political ramifications would be huge. For instance, if the Constitutional Court were to hand down a judgment that the former president must be incarcerated for a period of 2 years, which is one of the punitive measures that the State Capture Commission of Inquiry wants against former President Zuma, they are saying that they will not be entering into any cohesion that may be taking place now between themselves and the former president, that the camel's back has essentially been broken. Politically, it would, for instance, you've got those who are saying that there is a certain fight back campaign that is being orchestrated within the governing party. At the 6th floor, you heard Lula Mangugai Toby, who is the provincial secretary of the ANC in the Eastern Cape, in saying that there is an organization being formed inside the African National Congress, just like you saw in the 70s when the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, was formed, essentially saying that similar events are now taking place. And you've seen events where Begitele, the Minister of Police and ANC member, when he went to Gatawatunuse in Nkandla to visit former President Jacob Zuma, you had those who were supporters of the former president who were trying to prevent Minister and ANC member Begitele from entering Nkandla on the virtue that Cele is perceived to be a person who's aligned to President Cyril Ramaphosa. You've also had those who've gone to Nkandla to go to the former president, such as MKMVA, who have been very clear in their support of the former president's defiance of the Constitutional Court ruling that was compelling him to go to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, and they are supporting him through and through. People like Carl Niehaus, the MKMVA spokesperson, people like KB Mapatswe, people like Des Van Rooyen, who's dubbed as the weekend special for his smallest stint as the Minister of Finance in the country. So it tells you that there are those who support the former president, but many people are still asking themselves of the tea session that former President Jacob Zuma had with Julius Malema, Mzwandile Masina, Tony Yengeni, and Senior Counsel Advocate Dalimpofu, which the details of that particular tea session and meeting were never revealed, and many of us within the media fraternity are still in suspense of what actually happened in that meeting, whether the EFF was encouraging the former president to disobey the Constitutional Court, or the former president was being persuaded by Julius Malema to say, obey the Constitutional Court ruling, go to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, then invoke your right of not answering any questions in case you incriminate yourself like Dudumi did, but simply obey the ConCourt and go to the Commission of Inquiry and not answer questions and just remain silent, but don't create a constitutional crisis in the country. Some people say that was the argument of Julius Malema in that meeting. But internally in the ANC, the former president about 2 to 3 weeks ago met with the ANC top 6, and he was pretty clear in that meeting that he had with the ANC top brass that he is fighting for his constitutional rights, and he will exercise those constitutional rights that he fought for and will not go to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry until the Deputy Chief Justice, the chairperson of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, recuses himself because the president feels as if Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo is biased against him. Remember that spat where they were arguing whether they are friends or not friends, even Julius Malema asking what was a judge, a senior judge of the ConCourt, the Deputy Chief Justice, doing at a politician's home, and what were they discussing. So the relations between those two have completely broken down. They say in their own words they did have relations in the early 90s, and Zuma going as far as to have some personal issues of the Deputy Chief Justice in one of those letters that he wrote out on their friendship. But essentially, politically, the former president has been defying not only the Constitutional Court, not only the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, but also defying the highest decision-making body between conferences of the governing party, which is the NEC, which compelled all its former leaders, members, to go and cooperate with the State Capture Commission of Inquiry and provide any evidence that they may have. Hence, you have the president of the ANC now, Cyril Ramaphosa, going on the 22nd of April, right up until the 28th of April, where he will be giving evidence. And in between those days, the former SG of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, will also be going to give testimony. But those who belong to the RET faction within the ANC, which many people say is seemingly represented by former President Zuma and the Secretary General Ace Makashule these days, are simply against the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, as they feel that it's a witch hunt against them and all of those who are associated with the Guptas.
Given your analysis, how much of a rupture can the Fight Back campaign have within the ANC? And what do you foresee happening at the forthcoming NGC?
But essentially, that's even if the NGC of the ANC will take place, because next year they're going to their 55th National Elective Conference after the 54th in 2017. So essentially, if they're going to an NGC, they would have to have started with the branch general meetings in preparation for that NGC. A number of regions still have to go to conferences. A number of provinces still have to hold their provincial conferences. They've got an election to fight if it takes place later on this year, which is the local government election. So essentially, this weekend's National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, which will be discussing the step-aside guidelines that have been adopted by the National Executive Committee and were presented to the National Working Committee and then adopted by the NEC, where all leaders of the ANC in all spheres of government and in all structures of the governing party, from branches to regions to zones to provinces and to national, if they are charged, they have to step aside. So the NEC that's starting tomorrow is essentially going to be deliberating on that. And that step-aside guidelines not only affects the Secretary General of the African National Congress, who's been charged in Bloemfontein, it also affects the likes of Denim Caesar in Limpopo, who's the provincial treasurer of that province. You've got Sindisiwa Gomba in the Eastern Cape, and that provincial executive committee led by Askwa Mabuya and the chairperson, and Lula Mangcukai Toby, the provincial secretary in that PEC, that have said that all of those who are currently facing cases, have been charged or have been found guilty, must step aside from all leadership positions of the party, step aside from all government positions. That is the Eastern Cape. Then you've got KwaZulu-Natal, the likes of Zandile Gumete who have also been charged, the likes of Michael Mabuya Kulu, who are also facing charges within that particular province. Then there is a conundrum. You've got Bandile Masuku in Gauteng, who's not yet been charged, and Kusela Diko, but they have stepped aside and are yet to face any charges against him. The SIU has not wrapped up their investigations around them, and there are no criminal charges instituted against them, with Bandile Masuku writing to the SG in saying that there is an animal farm approach to the stepping aside guidelines of the African National Congress, as he's not been charged, but he's been asked to step aside from his duties as a Provincial Executive Committee, and Kusela stepping aside as a member of the Provincial Executive Committee and PwC, which is the Provincial Working Committee of the African National Congress, despite them not having any charges. So this weekend's NEC will effectively decide on all of those who've got questions to answer to, but most importantly, those who've got cases to answer to and who have been charged. But it then places a conundrum, because some feel that the SG of the ANC and his particular faction within the ANC is being targeted, and that some say the SG will never step aside and they will never allow it, and they will go and protect him with their bodies at Luthuli House at the 6th floor, with Lula Mangoga Itobi saying there is an entire new organization operating there at the 6th floor of Luthuli House, which is the RET grouping.
Interesting times. Thanks very much, Samkele, for that report. Samkele Maseko giving us an overview of the ANC internal squabbles. And we'll have more news for you after a short break.